Universe, Sisters Helping to Empower. I am your host, Dr. Amystique Church, and I'm, as always, excited to be here with you tonight. So, thank you, my sisters from the S.H.E Universe, for joining me. We have a very special segment for you tonight. As you know, most people all over the world have finished celebrating various holidays, and there's many more. And as we embarked on the new year, I thought about how important it is to understand the journey of grief. And so again, I know many people have went through the holidays and just even this year alone, and you want to kind of find your footing or your path. Well, we want to help you be able to have a different outlook for 2025, and for you to know that you are not alone. Again, for the S.H.E Universe, we are definitely here for you. And I always want to bring those quality individuals that are here to help you. Again, it's about sisters helping to empower. So I have a great guest for us tonight. As always, I'm going to let my guest introduce, herself. I don't say themselves because it's all about the she's. So it's always a woman. And so, again, I do want to thank our men out there that do listen to the S.H.E Universe and support us. So thank you for your much support. But again, it's about sisters helping to empower. And so I'm going to have my guest, introduce yourself.
Hello, the S.H.E Universe. I feel so honored to be here. Hello, hello. Greetings. My name is Ahira Smith. I am known as the Grief Mending Coach. I am the founder and CEO of From Grief to Life, and I am also the podcast host of It's Not You, It's Grief. And I am also a member of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated. So I am so honored and humbled to be here on my fellow sorors podcast called the S.H.E Universe. This is a very exciting time for a lot of people because we're about to turn over from 24 to 25, and I'm just ready to get the conversation started. So thank you so much for allowing me to come into the S.H.E Universe. I will do the best I can to answer any questions, or just share conversations with you all. So thank you.
Thank you so much. So tell us, how did you get to where you're at in your journey of dealing with grief? Because our segment tonight is called Journey to Grief, or Journey Through Grief. That's what it's about. And so, as we know, there's different various forms of grief, but you can kind of center on the one that you're most passionate, that's most connected to you, however you want to do it. I just want people to understand that it's okay not to be okay. It's okay to understand what you're feeling is normal. It's okay to understand that grief is okay. It's okay to mourn the loss, however it happens. So share with us about that journey and how we can have healing.
So what started it for me? Wow. Okay. So it's always kind of a loaded question for me because like a lot of people, we're going through this thing called life, and we all have encountered things that meant something to us, people who came into our lives who are no longer with us. And the turning point for me was definitely between 2017, 2018, where 2017, I had a miscarriage. And when that occurred, it was my first time ever being pregnant. You know, obviously, I didn't know how to process it other than just to suppress it. And that's what I did. I ended up suppressing the whole experience of having a miscarriage. And some people knew, a lot of people did not, and I was okay with it. I just did what I had normally done in years past when I've lost a loved one, or just go through the motion, if you will. It wasn't until February 2018 when I got word that my father had a massive heart attack, and he died in March in 2018. And I knew when he was called home, anything and everything that was suppressed up to that point no longer was the case. It erupted. And so I'm like, okay, I need some counseling. This is too much. This if I wasn't going to deal with the grief of losing my child before, I had no choice but to lose. I had no choice but to deal with it as I was dealing with the loss of my dad. And so that was a turning point for me to really dive deep into this thing called grief. And even at the time, I didn't want to hear it. I was in a state of apathy at work. You could see it on my face. You could see it in how I was walking, how I was talking, how I was interacting. And it wasn't until my former supervisor called me into her office and she said something to me that kind of triggered me a little bit, but not in a bad way, but it was a way to wake me up. Like, what did you just say to me? And so then I'm like, okay, I've got to get a handle on this because this is something that's definitely out of my comfort zone and I don't know how to do it. I'm usually a problem solver, so I always try to fix everybody else's problems. But when it came to this, there was no preparation. You know, my father was of age and he had some health issues. And no matter how many conversations he and I had talked about what he wanted and what was going to happen and this, that, and the other, I would always be like, okay, Pop, no worry about it. We'll get to it when we get to it. But when it happened, there was no preparation. Everything that we talked about, it was like whatever. And I was in a state of numbness. And so for me, I had I had to just move about. You know, it was weird because a few days after my dad had passed, I went back to work and one of my colleagues was like, "What are you doing here?" And I'm like, "I'm here at work." And it's like, your dad died. I said, I know. He's like, but you shouldn't be here. And I'm like, yeah, I should, because this is what my dad would have wanted, but it was not what I needed at the time. I was not in a healthy state. And so it was between um 2017, 2018 was the pivot, the poignant moment, I should say, to where my grief journey or my outlook on grief had shifted completely. So
So when a person, whatever the loss is and however the loss happens, what would be some of the words you would say to a person that just may have lost a child, a parent? I even tell people all the time that when I lost my pet, I grieved, you know. And as you know, and the She universe knows, I did lose a daughter that was seven. She was 17 at the time, and of course, you know, had a parent that passed away, had grandparents and all that. But what are some of the things that you think that we should do in order to acknowledge it? Do you think that we as society teach people to run away from it? And then how should we acknowledge it when it happens? And I know that looks different for everyone, but in the journey that you have experienced and what you have learned, how can you help those in the She universe that are impacted, you know, right now?
people need to understand that grief, there's no blueprint to grief. I wish there was like a one blueprint that everybody can follow on that so-called blueprint or roadmap and be like, this is what you're going to encounter, and you're going to encounter it at this particular time in the calendar. And it doesn't work like that. It really doesn't. Grief itself is a roller coaster ride. You can look at it as put 10 of the scariest roller coasters together and you're on the ride. And it's going to be up and down and twisting and some of those seats that you're in may have just a seat belt and the other one may have the harness and you may have the full strap like you're on a space shuttle. You know, it differs, you know. I think in terms of how society has contribute to folks in terms of grief itself, you didn't see a shift regarding how grief and society, you didn't see a shift on how society viewed grief until the pandemic, which wasn't until 2020, because that was the first time that the world had literally and figuratively have shut down, and folks could not run out to their job or run to this place or that place to get away from it. You literally had to sit in whatever it is that you were feeling at that moment, that loss of a pet, a spouse, a sibling, a child, a job, a home, your own health. You had to be in it and recognize it, that it is something that no longer is the same than what it was prior to 2020, you know? So I think when it comes to people who hear the news about, oh, well, this person lost their mom. I'm literally 30 minutes before we just had this conversation started, I heard one of our sorority sisters' mother had just passed away. And at the moment, I just made sure I sent a message saying my condolences to you. But one of the most precious things that I know that I had received from somebody who was offering me condolences or just acknowledging my loss was, one, acknowledging it or giving me a safe space to just be. Sometimes that's the best thing you can do, is just have a space for me to just be there and just let me feel what I need to feel. It doesn't need to be filled up with a whole bunch of words. We could just sit there quietly. Just saying I'm here means so much. And also, don't try to ask the person, what is it that you need? Because I promise you, we're not going to tell you. We got 15 million other things on our mind. So if you know that somebody has lost their significant other and they got some young kids, hey, make them that lasagna and bring it over to the house. Or maybe pick up the kids with their permission and be like, I'm going to go pick up the kids for you. I got it for today. Or even come by the house, maybe help straighten up, do some laundry for them, you know, just be present. That right there can mean a world of difference between somebody who is dealing with a loss and they're dealing it with somebody who cares and somebody who's actually there for them versus them having all these people around them and they still feel alone.
So when we get to that place where we do feel alone, how do you think we should reach out to people? So if I have someone that's, experiencing a loss, what are some triggers that you think are no to say to an individual? And then what are what are some triggers, that are no to say to an individual, and what ways can we really find comfort? And I know, that again, many of us that have experienced that loss, we understand that anything that has happened to us, it has happened to someone else, right? I remember I read an article one time and it talked about Abraham Lincoln lost two children, had two children that died. And I was like, wow, because, at the time, which I know this was crazy, but I thought, like, okay, I'm the only one in the world that has ever lost a child, which we know that's not true. And then when I started going to counseling to a group called the Compassionate Friends, I met other parents that have lost a child, whether through stillborn, miscarriage, however it happened, or sickness, and disease, or, through an accident like my own. I realized, okay, I'm not in this alone. And then again, within time, reading the article about Abraham Lincoln, and okay, there's someone else that has experienced this. But yeah, what are some of those triggers that we shouldn't say to people when they are experiencing a loss? And then how do we help them to go through the journey, not to move on? Because I believe that grief, that journey, for me, and you tell me if I'm wrong, but I believe that journey looks different for everyone. So whether it's a year, whether it's 10 years, whether it's 20 years, whether it's even forever. But how do we, so again, what are the triggers? How do we help that person? And, what will that look like for an individual to become healthy and whole as they go through that journey of grief? I know those are a lot on you, but take it away.
Okay, I'm going to be completely transparent. Until you have gone through it, you will never truly know what it entails. I've had people prior um I had people who were doing the best that they could to comfort me, to be there for me. Um I even had a situation where there was somebody who I held dear in my heart one time. This person reached out to me one time when they got word that my mother had passed, and then for like the next 3 weeks, did not hear anything. It was like before the term ghost was so popular, he ghosted me, and I was just like, wait, what? So you didn't think about calling, texting, and it's one of those things where I say all that because unless you've gone through it, you're not really going to know what the right thing to say or how to be present. So to piggyback on one of the things is what are some triggers? What are some things that that's just not helpful. I'll just say what it is. Here are some things, and this is just a small list here, but there's probably other things depending on how people's triggers are. Everything happens for a reason. Oh, I can't stand that one. Just because I know it doesn't mean I really want to hear it. It was their time. Well, everyone dies eventually. You should try to date again. At least they died quickly. At least you got to spend X number of years with them. Well, they were elderly, so it was their time. At least you got to say goodbye. Look on the bright side. You're still young and you can remarry, or look on the bright side. You're still young. You can have another child, and they're in a better place now. Don't say that. Don't say none of that. Don't say any of that. That does not comfort anyone. That gives you more comfort for saying that to the other person as opposed to the one who's receiving hearing it on the other end, you know? So instead of saying all of those cliche terms, just say you are more upset or no, um, not what is it? What is it? What is it? What is it? So instead of saying all of that, just say I'm here. Just say I, I'm I'm present. Because with them saying all that stuff, oh, they're young, oh, they died quickly, at least they're not suffering. What we're hearing on the other end is like, you are more upset than you should be, or you should be relieved it could have been worse. That's what we're hearing when you say all that stuff, everything happens for a reason, it was their time. Those are the two things that we're hearing, that you should be relieved that it could have been worse, or it wasn't worse than what it was. We don't want to hear all that. So I think you have to make sure you understand though is that um it's going to be it's different for everybody. And I know a lot of times people are like, well, I don't know what to say because I'm afraid if I say something, it's going to make them cry. Let them cry. They lost their mom, they lost their dad, they lost their child, they lost their significant other. Let them cry. Who are you to sit there and say that they shouldn't feel that way? That's their relationship. That's their thoughts. That's their that's their person. You're looking at on the outside. This is the person who's in that moment. So, that's and I know, and there are people who mean well. I use that term loosely, mean well, and there was always that saying I heard growing up, oh, well, this person had good intentions. Well, the pathway to hell was paved with good intentions too. So, just kind of just be mindful about that. How you handle it is going to differ from another person. You might not have had a good relationship with your father, where I might have had the best relationship anybody could ask for with their father. So it's going to be different, even within the same family. I have two older siblings, and our relationship with our parents is definitely different. And yet we grieve differently, we celebrate them differently, we honor them differently. But that's how we do it. So yeah.
I know one that I used to get that just, I actually, and I don't like to use the word hate, but I hate it. That oh, God needed, my daughter was very athletic. God needed someone for their basketball team, or God needed another, bird in the garden or flower in the garden. Like what?
What?
That's what you want to say to me? No, my child was just killed. That's not what I want to hear. At that moment. Well, never. I don't even want to hear it at that moment. Or ever. And for me, I actually thought that I would receive some kind of comfort or peace by, you know, Christians coming to my door, but all they wanted to do was bamboozle me with a whole bunch of scriptures and challenge my faith or things like that. And it's like, oh, okay, why are you crying? Why are you sad? Where is your faith? And I'm like, wait a minute, I'm still human. And that's a child that I carried. And that's a child that lived with me for 17 years, and so that really took me for a loop. And unfortunately, mentally, emotionally, it put me in a very dark place and I started shutting myself off. And if you're not a strong person and you don't, for me as a person of faith, and then understand that your faith is not connected to what people say to you, it's about your relationship with God. I remember in my compassionate friends support group, when I used to go, there were people in there, unfortunately, that used to be Christians, but because of things that people said to them during their loss, they shut themselves off from God, and it was the people that said these things, but they took it out, on their personal faith. And so I could see how that happened. If I did not have the strong faith that I did, and understanding that there's a difference, um and did not allow myself to kind of shield and guard my heart, then it would have made me probably react the same way. So as we think about the right words to say to someone that's grieving, again, no matter how the loss is, what would be some of the best things that those on the She universe, they have family members, they have friends that are being impacted by loss, especially during this time of year, especially as we've gotten over the holidays. What would be some of the best ways that we can help each other to get through?
Honestly, less is more. Again, I think we've run I think the time for us for always having something to say has run its course. It's about being action oriented. Uh some people like to talk just to hear themselves talk. Some people talk because they feel like they know it all. They know they have all the answers. Um, I've been where you've been at, and I know this is what helped me. But again, what helped me may strangle another person. And I think it's just again being present with that person in that moment. Let them cry. Let them have that moment. Let them think about their loved one. Yeah, I it's different. It's like you're trying to pour water into a vase that's broken, and the vase is broken, but yet you try to glue it back together, but yet there's still cracks in it, water's still seeping out, and you can't do that. The vessel is broken, and so now you would like take all this water and pour it into a new vase. It may not be filled like the other one before, but you just start pouring into that because at the end of the day, um, that's their truth, that's their reality. If you've been with somebody for 45 years and then that person's passed away, and then within 10 days time the other person has passed, it's devastating for those that they left behind, but is it really a surprise? No, they spent almost 50 years with that person. So um I think one of the things that is sorely lacking, but I'm starting to notice a picking up, is grace. And again, the grace comes with that of empathy, and the empathy comes with action. So I just think it really depends on the person's mindset as to what is the focus. Is the focus of you trying to fix it or trying to help them? Or is it you trying to create or carve out a space for them to come in when they want to or when they feel like it and just be safe?
That's good. And I think a lot of times we don't, and this is just me, but I think a lot of times we don't give people that safe space. And again, like I said earlier, that it's okay to be okay. What are some of the things, or what are some of the things that you have done and that you are in pursuit of doing for your business, for your company and your podcast? Tell us about that, and how can others get connected to you, follow you, share what you want to share to our she listeners out there.
Okay. Again, my business is called From Grief to Life, and I have coaching sessions that are available for those who want that more one-on-one conversations or group sessions. I also love to speak to larger groups, whether it's companies, businesses, uh, universities, groups, organizations, because it is an uncomfortable topic, yet everybody is encountering it in some shape, in some form, in some kind of way. And now that we're about to go into 2025, conversations surrounding mental health is becoming much more the forefront thanks to the pandemic. However, there are people who are truly struggling because they're trying to go back to what it was like before 2020. And one of the things that I've learned is you have to stop today. Today, you have to stop wanting it to be like yesterday because it's just not. That's the one thing we're not going to get back is our time. How you did things prior to March 2020, it's not the same as in January 2025 because you have changed, you have evolved, you have grown, or at least you should have, you know, you should have been intentional with whatever that looks like. So for me, it's just being able to meet these different places of people to start having these conversations more on a consistent basis. And so that is what I'm doing with my coaching business. I'm also fortunate enough to be going to a couple of different colleges, community colleges, university, to talk with their students and staff on what their grief that they would encounter, especially in the workplace, because that was one of the things that I did notice at my former place of employment, that we would be there to help other people with their grief as far as students is concerned, but there was so much grief happening at work with my colleagues that there wasn't a place for us to lay our lay our burdens down, if you will. And so that is one of the things that I am really looking to continue to do moving in 25. I'm also getting ready to do my very first TED Talk. I have been selected to do a TED Talk in March in regarding my regarding thank you regarding the work that I do. So I'm very excited about that. And coming up in May, I am scheduled to travel to Gambia in Senegal for a 10-day adventure, if you will, to help people reconnect to their ancestors, as well as a place to heal from our ancestral grief. And so if people would like information about that, you are more than welcome to join in with us on this pilgrimage of healing. And that's something I'm really looking forward to because I know for us, and especially in the African American community, a lot of our grief is generational. and we do tend to respond to grief based off what we were shown from that of our parents and our grandparents and our elders. But it's deeper than that because of our ancestors in this country. We weren't allowed to grieve. You know, if people during slavery was in a state of grief, if any type of emotion was shown about it, we would be punished. And so to me, this trip is very, very important because there's some healing that needs to be done that can't be done here. It has to be done where it started off. And in this case, it's going to be over in Gambia and in Senegal. And the dates for that is May 18th to the 28th. And I have information on it. It's all for people who are able to leave it, go out there and just be. And it's not just healing. We're also going to be partaking in different cultural events, going to different museums. We're going to be interacting with different people, industries, networking, learning about the businesses, how to create our legacy wealth over there in the motherland. We're also going to be visiting Kunta Kinte Island, where the ancestral lineage of Alex Haley, we will be also embarking upon that pilgrimage and those different tribal ceremonials will be we'll be privy to seeing and what that all means. So I'm very excited about that. And just continuing the work that I'm doing. I have my podcast coming up next month. Actually, it's going to be a special one because I was able to gather several distinguished members of the Divine Nine to sit on this conversation next month. It's going to be a live talk about grief. Um, and we're still ironing out exactly what that will entail. But what I like about it is that it's going to be representations from those who are celebrating their Founders Day next month. So there's 5 out of the 9 who are going to be celebrating the organizations, and so yep.
Congratulations on all of that. Sounds so
Thank you.
exciting. So
Thank you.
exciting, especially being able to travel and going back to, like you said, where it kind of all started. And, people always say we have to know where we are past. You have to embrace your past. You have to be able to, look at it and say, okay, this happened here and this is why it all stems from it. And let me deal with it in order to move forward for that overall transformation of health and healing. And I say wholeness, to become whole people. And what I have learned through the journey of grief, that whole process is to be whole mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually. You have to deal with it and allow those moments. I call them grief spasm. Allow those moments of grief spasms to come. If they come, they come. But to be able to deal with that, and that's exciting about what you're about to do. And I definitely want everyone from the She universe to go ahead and support you. Do you have a website, or where can they go to listen to your podcast?
Absolutely. So my website is www.fromgrieftolife.com. And again, it's from grief, FROM, grief, GRIEF, the number 2, life, LIFE.com. So that has all my information. It has upcoming events, conversations that will be forthcoming. As far as the trip is concerned, again, I'll be more than happy to send you the link. It has the itinerary down. It has information on travel and where we be departing from, which would be JFK Airport over to that of Senegal. But there's prices for those with flights and those who without flights. So people do have those options because some people may want to use their air mileage. So we do have those options for them. And just in answer any questions on what else we're going to be doing while we're out there. As far as my podcast is concerned, it has been on StreamYard. but I've been putting it on YouTube as well as it's on Spotify. And so It's Not You, It's Grief is that podcast location. So feel free to reach out to me, send me an email. I do have a Facebook page of It's Not You, It's Grief. You can send me a message there. I'm mostly on LinkedIn as well, by my first name, Ahira Smith. And so That's the best way you can reach me is on LinkedIn and or that of um, email or through my website.
Okay. Thank you so much for joining us. I truly appreciate it. You have provided some valuable information and resources for our She universe. So, sisters out there in our She universe, again, sisters helping to empower. I know you have learned a lot from our special guests, and please go to her website. Think about the journey of taking that trip. Definitely listen to her podcast. And is your podcast every week or is it once a month?
So when I initially started my podcast in 2023, I would try to do it every Sunday, like 3 out of the 4 Sundays a month. And then last year, actually not last year, this year, I've kind of I scaled it back a bit because I wanted to really focus on that of the coaching and speaking sessions of my business. And so now I'm looking at possibly doing this either once or twice a month, just because of way my schedule is starting to pick up and change. So, but I always want to make sure that the conversations again are organic and they're authentic and they're not there's so much about grief that a lot of times people just think it's just 5 stages of grief and then that's it. And I'm like, no, there is a well of different types of grief that we haven't even scratched the surface on. There's that ambiguous grief, complicated grief, there's the disenfranchised grief, and there's just a plethora of other types of grief out there that people are just not familiar with and they're not educated on. And so this is where I coming in. And actually on January 22nd, I'm going to be launching a grief workshop series. The information is on eventbrite.com, but it's open to anybody. It's going to be for 4 weeks for an hour to just help people start getting in the habit of learning about the different types of grief that they are going to encounter sooner or later. And I'm running a holiday special right now, so the price is at 50% off. So if when you go on eventbrite.com and you look at it, that's the price at 50% off. So definitely come. We'll have some I'll have some templates for you guys to embark upon, some different journal prompts. It's just going to be very, very organic but intentional and safe and supportive.
That's great. That's great. Again, I celebrate you. I applaud you. I congratulate you because you're doing some great work. And this is such a very important subject, important subject because here's the fact it's going to hit us. It hits us all. It hits us all. And so by you being passionate about your purpose and what you've been called to share with the world. So again, I thank you for your time and being willing to share it with us in the She universe here. Again, Sisters Helping to Empower. She universe, I just want to take a moment since we're embarking on 2025, but our many sponsors through 2024, personal sponsors and even corporate sponsors. Vicki Lemon, these are people that gave donations that have supported the She Universe, has supported Enterprise Coaching and Development Center, which falls underneath our nonprofit for She Universe. Again, Sisters Helping to Empower. I want to thank Red Tail Magazine. Just thank you so much for supporting us. Thank you for EMAC for providing various sponsorships and promoting our show. Again, just the many sponsors that have helped us throughout this year for 2024. I'm excited about, always say I'm excited, just so excited about the new programming that's coming up for 2025. So those on the She Universe know, continue to subscribe, continue to support us, to follow us, and share the information out there. So for the many individuals that have provided assistance and shared information about the topics and have circulated, our information through YouTube for the various states, and also those that are clicking on Tubu, shorts and watching it. I always get excited when someone sends me a message and say, "Hey, I saw this on Tubu shorts." Oh, I'm going to start, checking it out on YouTube. So I really appreciate that. And so thank you so much. I want to thank NYC for the creativeness that does the editing and recording, for S.H.E Universe, and puts us out there and created our theme song. So 2024 has really been a great year for the S.H.E Universe, and I am so thankful and grateful for what it is. So I want to thank you, my sister, for helping us in this year. Again, it's such an important topic because it does impact us all, and we will all hear the knock on the door of grief. And so you have given us some valuable tools, some valuable information. And so we will continue to support you and follow you as we go on that journey, of grief. And I like what you said, grief to life. And so that's what it's about, knowing that, yes, grief has knocked on our door, but it's not the end of our life. And so, how do we continue to live, after it has knocked on our door? And so, thank you for showing us those ways and providing the support. Do you have any lasting sounding comments? We have 2 minutes. So, let those 2 minutes be yours.
First of all, thank you all so much for having me here. I really do appreciate it. I would love to just share three elements on what I tell all of my clients or just the people I speak with when it comes to grief. If you are struggling and if you are really having a difficult time with your grief, one thing I would like to say is give yourself permission to grieve. Give yourself permission to grieve because it is essential. We don't have to give ourselves permission to breathe, but when it comes to something of this that can affect our breathing ability, with panic attacks and anxiety attacks, give yourself permission to grieve. The second thing is honor the grief. Celebrate that person that meant so much to you, say their name, do something on their birthday. If it's a time when, their passing is coming on, maybe listen to their favorite song or watch their favorite movie. Honor the grief itself, you know. And the third and final element, after you've given yourself the permission to grieve and you honor that grief, know that there is still greatness in grief because of the memories and the lessons that came from that relationship or that experience, because that's what grief really is. Grief is about relationships, period. And so give yourself permission, honor the grief, and then realize that there still is greatness in grief. And this is the Grief Mending Coach signing off. I wish you all a happy and prosperous New Year's. I look forward to you all coming to my workshops. I look forward to you all traveling with me to Gambia and Senegal. I look forward to coaching with you all, and nothing else. I just look forward to meeting you. Take care.
Thank you again, S.H.E Universe. This is your host, Dr. Amystique Church. We thank our dear sister, Ahira Smith, for sharing so much wisdom with us. And again, you from the S.H.E Universe, sisters helping to empower. We are there for you. You are not going through your journey alone. Until the next segment, thank you. Be empowered by S.H.E Universe. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, everybody.
With
Bye.
2024, in with 2025. We love you.